Alrighty then, Metallist here for another long overdue episode of The Metallist, and tonight The Metallist presents Black Sabbath, the studio albums ranked. One thing quickly, I did not put any of the Heaven and Hell stuff in here since technically that's not Black Sabbath albums, and I don't want to get sued by Sharon Osbourne either. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. There's 19 albums here, 19 studio albums. We're going to start with number 19 and work our way up to my favorite. So let's get it going here. All right, so probably not much argument for most Sabbath fans. Coming in at number 19 is the 1995 album Forbidden. This was just a bizarre release, to say the least. There's a song in there called The Illusion of Power, which features a rap by Ice-T. And Ice-T, to his credit, is quite the metal fan. Even had his little body count band that was considered metal by some folks. But originally, I thought he was supposed to produce this record. Turns out his body count guitar player, who goes by Ernie C., is the guy that not replaced, but, well, I guess he replaced Ice-T in the production chair. And, yeah, like I said, I don't think you can get much argument from most Sabbath fans that this is not what we wanted whatsoever. Okay, so moving on. Number 18, probably get some crap for this one. A lot of people do like this album. This one just never caught me. Tear from 1990, I believe. And typically when I rank albums, and I don't do it very often, but I think I'm going to start doing a little more, I go by, do I even remember the record? And I sort of had this on my little rant about Iron Maiden. It's like, I don't even remember the songs. They're just not even interesting enough to dislike. And that's kind of how I felt about this album here. I remember a tune called The Sabbath Stones. I thought, that's not bad. So again, this and the previous album, both feature vocalist Tony Martin. And I will be the first to go on record and say, I probably did not give this guy a fair shake. Although, you know, I own all the records that he's on. I've seen him live with them several times. I would have to really seriously think about how many times I've seen the Tony Martin version of Black Sabbath. And while I don't dislike the guy, he is somewhat Dio-ish, I guess you could say. So he's pretty versatile as far as being able to do some of the different Sabbath lineups through the years. I don't know. And like I said, I don't think I gave the guy a fair shake. But again, like I said, if you guys really feel that, you know, you really should go back and revisit this album, you know, I'll be glad to do it. But, you know, as it stands right now, like I say, just not much memory of this record whatsoever. So moving on. Number 17, we're going to go to 1994's Cross Purposes. And when this came out, I wanted to like this album more than I did for the simple fact that Geezer Butler's on it. And this is the only album that Geezer did with what I'll call the two Tonys, Martin and Naomi, of course. And again, like I say, just another record. I don't remember a whole lot of it. I remember a song, A Hand That Rocks the Cradle, or something like that. But overall, yeah, just not much to say about it. But I do remember liking it better than the previous two. And that's about all I can say about that one. I know, Forrest, moving on, right? Okay. All right, so next one. And I'm probably going to take some crap for this one, too, because a lot of people really like this album here. From 1989, this is The Headless Cross. Now, this features the mighty Cozy Powell on drums, probably my favorite drummer of all time. And he did play with Sabbath for quite a few years. I saw the Headless Cross tour, I know that. The title track is awesome. Cozy has a great drum intro to that. And then there was another track called When Death Calls. And that actually features Brian May from Queen doing a guest solo, a rare guest solo because, you know, as you know, Tony usually handles those things. Iommi, that is, of course. And so again, you know, like I said, a solid record. You know, I don't hate it by any stretch, but again, not as memorable as maybe I had hoped for me personally. So that's number 16. So coming in at 15, the album before that from 87 called The Eternal Idol. I like this one quite a bit. There's quite a few songs on here I really enjoyed. The title track, obviously, was pretty awesome. And what else was on this? The Shining and Ancient Warrior and Glory Road. Those were all pretty good songs. Interestingly enough, there is a version of this album that I got as a bootleg years ago. and I think it's been officially released probably on some deluxe edition of this record or something or other, where the entire album is sung by a guy named Ray Gillen, not Ian Gillan, but Ray Gillen, later of Badlands fame. And unfortunately, Ray's life didn't last nearly as long as we had hoped. He died many, many years ago, actually, from complications due to HIV, and which is a shame. He was a great vocalist, and there is some live recordings of him on a previous tour singing with Black Sabbath live, but we'll get into that here a little bit later. But anyway, the Ray Gillen version is pretty interesting, and you can kind of tell the album was done with him in mind, because some of the stuff is a little higher ranged. Ray was a bit of a higher range singer than Tony Martin, and some of the stuff, it seems like Tony's stretching a little bit to get to the notes. So again, if you're interested in this album or you like this album, if you haven't heard the Ray Gillen version, I would say go dig that up. It's pretty cool. All right, coming in at 14 is 13. It would have been funny if it would actually come in on 13 on my list, but so this was the final Black Sabbath album, and we had the return of Ozzy, which is cool. For me personally, it was just a little too doomy, which is hilarious because, Sabbath's known for being a doomy sounding band, but it was just, I don't know, a little too slow, a little too plodding, I know a lot of their songs kind of lumber along like a dinosaur, but this dinosaur had a sore foot, I think. So again, like I said, the songs are just kind of a little slow. The production was okay. Personally, it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth, the fact that Bill Ward wasn't on it. They had that with that guy from Rage Against the Machine. What's his name? Brad Wilk or something like that. I don't know about that. But anyway, so like I said, it was fun to hear Ozzy back with them, and then, of course, the big final tour and all that kind of stuff. But like I say, didn't really set that well with me personally. And again, like I say, your opinions, I'm certain, will vary. So let me know if I need to maybe go back and check out that album again. All right, moving on to 13. Born Again from 1983. This is the lone album with the mighty Ian Gillan. At the time, I was very excited because as a kid, I did not get to see Gillan with Deep Purple. My first experience with Deep Purple was, and I'm very glad about this, in retrospect, was the Mark III lineup with David Coverdale and Glenn Hughes. So, it was very cool that I did get to see that particular lineup on stage, and I did get to see Deep Purple years later with, subsequent reunions with Ian Gillan. But at this point, this seemed to be my only way I was ever going to see Ian Gillan on stage, and I did get to do that in November of '83. And it was interesting because if you've heard the album, let's talk about a couple of tunes on the album. There's a tune called Trashed and Disturbing the Priest, which is pretty awesome. Zero the Hero, which is allegedly about Ozzy. But interestingly enough, if you listen to kind of the main riff of Zero to Hero, sounds an awful lot like Paradise City, Axl, just saying. So check that out for yourself, see what you think. Then there's another tune on there called Digital Bitch, which of course is supposed to be about Sharon, allegedly. But again, we don't want to get any litigation going on here, so that's all I'm going to say about that. But so Ian just screams his ass off on this record. And for a guy that's known for screaming, he really outdoes himself, especially like the intro to Disturbing the Priest. And oh man. So when we finally did get around to the tour, I was so excited to see this guy live. And he comes out and he's literally got like this clamp on his microphone. And he's got like two sports bottles like clamped onto his mic stand. And I don't know what was in this stuff, but he kept like gargling between verses in some cases. Because he is just screaming his lungs out. Ian Gillan.
Oh, okay.
little help from the wife there. So
from Deep Purple?
Yes, from Deep Purple.
Okay.
Anyway, so he was up there just screaming his ass off, and he was literally gargling with something in between. And I'm looking at him going, oh man. And I'm thinking, if he does another tour with these guys, I don't think he's ever going to sing again. But then, fortunately, the Deep Purple reunion did arise the following year, and that was the end of Black Sabbath. Now, this particular album I was pretty fond of at the time, despite the fact that the production is abysmal. It's probably one of the worst produced Black Sabbath albums, maybe with the exception of Forbidden. It's just muddy sounding and, you know, too much bass and that kind of thing. But the album for me hasn't aged well over time. I mean, it's not one I really go back to much. I mean, obviously, if I want some Gillan, I've got plenty of Deep Purple and like 26 solo albums of the end. So I've got plenty of other places to go with that. So that's kind of my take on Born Again. So continuing on.
You've aged well, though.
Oh, my wife says I've aged well.
59, right there, brother.
Not yet.
Well, almost.
Anyway, so on to number 12 here. So there's a lot of controversy about this particular record. This one is called Seventh Star. And notice the cover says Black Sabbath featuring Tony Iommi. Well, at this point, Tony was the lone man from the original band. And he got Glenn Hughes to sing on this record. Now, a lot of people think that this was supposed to be a Tony Iommi solo album. Maybe it was, not really sure. Because around the same time, from what I've heard, he purchased the rights to the name Black Sabbath. Why would you purchase the rights to the name and then want to put out a solo record? So I don't know. So there's some real controversy there. I mean, I've heard Glenn speak about this, and he mentions that, you know, he thought he was doing a Tony Iommi solo album. He says, I went in there to do vocals on a couple tracks. I ended up doing vocals on all the tracks. He says, the next thing I'm reading in the papers is I'm the new lead singer of Black Sabbath. And I'm like, wait, what? So, but still, nonetheless, a good record. A really good record. Doesn't sound like Black Sabbath much at all. Actually, future Kiss drummer Eric Singer is on here as well. And so, yeah, it was just kind of an odd lineup, kind of an odd time. This came out in like 86, I believe. But In for the Kill is a good rocker. No Stranger to Love was the quote-unquote single, and there was a video for that. And all I remember was the video was just kind of like Tony walking around, kind of looking like he does on this front cover here. But pretty good for a power ballad. Well, not bad at all. Then we had the title track was pretty awesome. Seventh Star was good. And another tune called Danger Zone. So I'd mentioned Ray Gillan earlier. So as it turned out, at that point, Glenn sort of had a little problem with powdering his nose from the inside, shall we say. So he had a pretty good coke habit going on, which was affecting his vocals. Now, I got to see one of only about 6 shows that Glenn did with Black Sabbath, because the opening of the United States tour was in Cleveland. And just as a side note, Wasp was the opening band, so that was kind of an interesting pairing, to say the least. I don't remember him being that bad, but I have seen footage from a show in Detroit like a couple nights later, and it's like, woo, you know, especially when you consider what an amazing vocalist he is to this day. Okay, so he only did 6 shows, and then they brought in this guy, Ray Gillan, this young guy. And there are live recordings out there of Ray singing with Black Sabbath, and, you know, singing some of their old classics and that kind of thing. That's pretty interesting to hear. So again, just kind of an odd but yet interesting time for the band, I thought. So that's my number 12. All right, moving on to 11. Dehumanizer, the Return of the Mob Rules lineup. So we got Vinny Appice back in the fold. We got the mighty Ronnie James Dio back. We were super psyched when this was coming out. Okay, so this was 1992. So at that point, we're pretty excited about this album. But again, this is another album that unfortunately just didn't age as well as I had hoped, although I have several songs on there that I really, really like. I mean, Computer God is cool, TV Crimes, Time Machine. There's actually a different version of Time Machine in the Wayne's World movie. It's a little bit different, I think. A tune that's just called I is probably my favorite from the whole thing. And Heaven and Hell was still playing that one up to till the end of the era with Ronnie under the name Heaven and Hell. So yeah, that's a great song there. But again, I'm a little sludgy sounding, you know, but like I said, we were just kind of thrilled to have Dio back, and of course the tour in '92. Opener, as I remember, was Glenn Danzig, so that was kind of interesting too. Well, actually, Danzig the band, I guess I should say. So coming in at number 11, we've got Dehumanizer. All right, to the top 10. All right, Never Say Die, kind of an album a lot of people dog on. I thought it was pretty boss myself. You know, I thought it was pretty good. I got to see Sabbath that year, The only problem with that was they had some little band from California opening the show called Van Halen, and Van Halen kind of put it to them. I got to say, I mean they were young and hungry. Black Sabbath was kind of limping along, as you know. This was the last album of the original Ozzy era. But in particular, I guess when I was thinking about it, I really liked the first side of the album. And can't tell you a whole lot about the second side. Maybe I never flipped the thing over back in the day. But the first side, you got the title track. You got a tune called Johnny Blade, Junior's Eyes, A Hard Road. I liked all those songs, you know. So this album still ranks pretty high for me. I remember some other stuff on the other side, something about swinging the chain or something like that. I don't remember, but a whole lot about it. But like I said, the first side I was pretty happy with, and it still, you know, brings back good memories. So I guess I put that one in the top 10 here. All right, moving on to number 9. Another album that kind of gets some flack from people, Technical Ecstasy. And this one came out, I think, in 76. Yeah, there's some oddball tunes on here, but the ones that are good are really good. I mean, Backstreet Kids is a great song. Rock and Roll Doctor is a great song. Dirty Women. I mean, there's some good stuff on there. A little different, like I said, a little different for Sabbath. And these albums, like this one and the previous one, Never Say Die, I kind of got into later, just because it had gotten to the point where some of the early, you know, quote unquote classic stuff, I just played it so much. It's like, okay, I'm done. You know, I want something a little different, but I still want something that sounds like Sabbath. So then I started delving into these albums and was pleasantly surprised that there's still some pretty solid tracks on it. So that's why I'm putting Technical Ecstasy at number 9. Moving on, number 8, all the way back to the beginning, the debut album from 1970. Okay, so some people be like, why would you put this album down so low? And again, it's not that I dislike it. I mean, let's face it. The title track basically is a genre-defining track, you know, the song Black Sabbath. This album cover scared the hell out of me when I was a little kid. I'll tell you that much. But like I said, I mean, they were a little too much of, still too much of sort of a jam band and a blues band. I remember Sabbath started off as a blues band. Ozzy is definitely a blues singer, in my opinion. But like I said, the title track's amazing. Of course, NIB is a classic. And then depending on what version of this record you have, there's a song on there called Evil Woman, which was actually a cover by a band called Crow. And then there's another one that was a cover, it was called Warning. And it was some band that Ainsley Dunbar had. Ainsley Dunbar is a pretty famous drummer. He's been in, like Journey. And he actually sort of played with UFO. It was kind of when they did their Mog Way kind of thing. But he's been all over the place. Santana, and surprisingly, he didn't play for Black Sabbath at any point. You thought maybe in the 90s when they were switching members like left and right that they may have actually worked with Ainsley Dunbar, but that didn't happen. So anyway, like I said, you know, quite a few cover tunes, a little kind of jammy and bluesy. So that's why it's kind of a little bit lower on the list than some people might anticipate. All right, coming in at number 7, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. All right, some good stuff here. Another album cover that scared the hell out of me when I was a little kid for obvious reasons. But the title track is pretty fantastic. Sabracadabra is really good. Killing Yourself to Live, another great song. And again, this is another album I kind of got into a little bit later after the, you know, sort of saturating myself with the classic albums, which we'll talk about here shortly. So that's number 7 for me. Number 6, Sabotage. You can't see it very well here, but you know, Bill Ward's checkered underwear I could do without, but you can't see it too well here. But anyway, the tunes on here that are heavy, really good, really good. So this album came out, what year did this come out? 75, I think. But like Hole in the Sky and Symptom of the Universe, just heavy rockin' tracks, especially Symptom. I mean, that is some good stuff there. And then a couple tunes that were a little more along the lines of progressive rock, but really good. Like Megalomania, awesome track. And both these tunes are about 9 minutes long, something like that, which was pretty long for a Sabbath tune. They were pretty much standard 4 to 5 minute songs for the most part. So yeah, Megalomania was awesome. Then one called The Writ, which was really cool. So yeah, a lot of good stuff on that album too. So that's why it ranks pretty high on my list. And again, like I said, a little more staying power just for the fact because I had just oversaturated myself with the albums that are coming up. All right, number 5, Paranoid. Again, people are like, well, really? Why is this not your number 1? Okay, I agree with you on that. I mean, let's face it, this album, the influence of this album can't even be charted, okay? It's just like I said, it's just to the point where it's like, do I ever need to hear War Pigs, Paranoid, or Iron Man again? Probably not. Not saying they're not amazing, because they are. A couple tunes that I will listen to a little more often. Electric Funeral is a pretty cool song. You know, it's another amazing Iommi riff. And of course, the fun little track called Fairies Wear Boots. I think that's probably, these days, probably my favorite song off the Paranoid album. So again, you know, no disrespect to the album. It's just something that's like, okay, you know, I played this so much as a kid. It's just like, okay, I don't play it that much anymore. But I do like those couple tunes that I mentioned, you know, now and again. Number 4 is Volume 4, coincidentally. Okay, another great record. Volume 4 came out in '72. One of my favorites on there is Tomorrow's Dream. Just, you know, another amazing Iommi riff. You know, oh man, so good, so good. So yeah, you know, that's an awesome song. Snowblind's on there, kind of a lot of really sort of low end kind of stuff, you know, Cornucopia, Supernaut, you know, these are all really, really good songs. So again, you know, huge fan of this album. Played this one to death, as I did, you know, pretty much the first 4 Black Sabbath albums. All right, so that's number 4. Number 3, year prior to that, this would have been 1971, Master of Reality. Ah, amazing stuff here. Sweet Leaf. After Forever, which I remember as a kid, the line about, would you like to see the Pope on the end of a rope? Do you think he's a fool? I'm like, wow. You guys are asking for it. But then you listen to the lyrics a little closer and you kind of see that that's not really where they're going with things. But again, you know, when you hear that stuff as a kid, you're like, whoo, man. So yeah, that's an awesome song. Of course, Children of the Grave, amazing. Yeah, that's just, you know, one of their all-time classics. Into the Void, another classic song. Really, really like that one a lot. So I guess this would be the top of the list here for me as far as Ozzy Osbourne. And you guys know where this is going now, if you've been keeping score. So coming in at number 2 from 1981, The Mob Rules. Yes, I am a Dio person big time, okay? So this album, when it came out, was just amazing. I mean, so good. Turn Up the Night and Voodoo. Of course, the title track. Now, there's a different version of the song The Mob Rules on the Heavy Metal soundtrack, which was the animated movie from 1981. So the version on there is a little bit different than it is on this album. Got to see this tour, of course. It was December of '81. Of course, you know, December of '81 in Ohio, yeah, you can pretty much count on getting a blizzard going on every time you try to go to a concert. And then the opening band, bizarrely enough, was Alvin Lee from 10 Years After. Amazing guitar player. I mean, the guy was at Woodstock, you know, but just kind of an odd pairing for, you know, Dio Sabbath. But again, I mean, just so many good songs. And then the big killers for me on this one was Falling Off the Edge of the World, and of course, The Sign of the Southern Cross, which is just one of the best tunes I think that Ronnie and Tony did together. And it would have been nice to see them actually do more work together beyond the Heaven and Hell stuff, you know, which we did get, and I was very glad to get. But again, like I said, I left that off the list because it's not technically Black Sabbath. So no surprise for people that know me. Coming in at number 1, Heaven and Hell. Just, I don't even know where to begin about this record. Probably my favorite album of 1980. And that's saying a lot because I did another show about what a great year 1980 was and how many great releases came out that year. This one, I think, came out about April of 1980. And again, I mean, the title track is just an all-time classic. And so fantastic. And then, you know, Neon Nights, you know, up the tempo a little bit, a little brighter sound than with the Ozzy stuff. Children of the Sea, another major classic. Lady Evil, Walk Away, Lonely is the Word. I mean, the solo at the end of Lonely is the Word is just, you know, Tony at his finest. I mean, just good stuff. So cannot say enough about this album. So that's my ranking. Love to hear your guys' ranking. So like I say, you're leave them in the comments. Let me know if there's certain albums that you think I kind of dissed that I maybe should check out again, and I'd be more than happy to do that. So make some suggestions, and of course comment, like, and subscribe. I appreciate it, and we will see you all next time.